James chapter 5 is where we're going to be. So, if you have been a part of this study, what we're going to discuss this evening is kind of a part 2 on what we chatted about a few weeks ago, kind of in James chapter 2. This idea of trials and suffering. James talked about it early on in the book, and then now he's going to kind of revisit it a little bit different of a slant, a little bit different of an angle, so the application will be totally different. But the conversation of trials and suffering and why does God allow it and what is he trying to do, James wants to dive into that just a little bit more. And I feel weird saying that. It sounds like I'm using my name in what would that be, the first person, referring to myself. That's weird, so just ignore that part. But he wants to revisit the topic, but directing our attention a little bit more, not just on the severity of the circumstance, but really trying to get us to redirect our attention back on God, who, according to his infinite wisdom, allows these circumstances into our life. It's not by chance, it's not by accident, and it's certainly not by a vindictive God that he allows suffering to be introduced into our life. Okay? He's doing something, and so that's what we're trying to understand. Now, it seems like, though, if we were to kind of kick off the discussion this way, it seems like we live in a society that has a hyper fixation on eradicating from the face of the earth. Like, ultimately, let's just, if we can get rid of it, let's do it. If we could eradicate any need for patience, it seems like that's what our culture is trying to do. If there was ever a way that we can make life more convenient, we're probably going to find that path. The immediate thing that I thought of was this whole Trump coming into town. Did anybody get affected by that, like, for real? Did you? I mean, just a little bit. I can't imagine it being severe. We live, 10 minutes from the airport. I was at the airport this morning. It was a disaster. It didn't inconvenience me 1 second. It wasn't a big. Actually, it's kind of cool to see some of the jets and things that came in before him. Some of the bigger things, and you go to the sacred ground of social media, and you would think that the world is being turned upside down. Like everything, the whole city. I don't know if you realize this or not. The whole city of Cincinnati just shut down. And it's really not that way. It's a major inconvenience to some, but it's really not that big of a deal. But for us, it's not just that the president came to town, it's the inconvenience of the matter. He might stop traffic for a minute. We might have to be delayed. Might have to, and that idea of I might have to show a little bit more patience just in today, the singular event, I mean, it puts people on their heels. It ticks off some people. So I was thinking about this a little bit differently, and I started to think about, okay, my youngest child, who is now 9 years old, how different it is for him as a 9-year-old, even than it was for me as a 9-year-old. We don't travel a lot as a family. Sometimes, I mean, really the most common trip that we take is from here to southeast Chicago, where Kara's family is, 4.5 hours, 5 hours, whatever it is. And you think about the amenities that kids have and what you didn't. I mean, I'm old enough to know that if I want to take a road trip, even if it was down to southern Kentucky, 2.5, 3 hours, what did we do in the back of that car? What did I do? I was an only child. I didn't even have a sibling to pick on. So what do you do for that time in the car? You had a window and you looked out at. If your parents really wanted to be engaging, which mine never did. I don't ever remember playing this game, but I did it with our kids. But the game of I Spy, or the alphabet game, you have to find a word that begins with every letter of the alphabet. And then if everything else goes sideways, you just take a nap. And that was it. And now you look at what, like, my kids have. The car has a DVD player in it. They have handheld video games. They have phones. They have all kinds of access to entertainment. And yet, even with all of that access to things that really should help them pass the time, they still have the nerve to look at me and say, I'm bored. That drives me up a wall. So as any good parent would do, I'll tell them, you want to see boredom? Pass your phones up. You want to see boredom? I turn off the DVD player. Look out the windows, because that's what a good parent would do, right? You want to know what boredom is, you have no concept. And what it ends up is, okay, even with the access to movies and to games and all of this other stuff that I can't wrap my mind around because I never had that, the sheer nerve to say, I'm bored, and it doesn't even have to be in the confines of a car. It could be just on a daily basis. Well, I'm bored. Like, you don't know what boredom is. You have no clue what that is. Let me show you. Let's put this in perspective. And a lot of this boils down to is I just don't have the patience to sit still in a car for any extended amount of time. And some, they're more patient than others. But what that tells me is we're raising a generation of kids that are so consumed with entertainment that patience is going to fly out the window. If I don't have this stupid thing in front of my face, I don't have the patience to sit still for 10 or 15 minutes. And when you think about it, this is what our society is developing. Real boredom and the lack of patience just to sit still. We're a mess. We don't like to wait. We don't like to wait on anything. I'm old enough to remember. You can help me out with this. I'm old enough to remember conversations that didn't have an end. Do you know what I mean by that? You ever have a conversation with somebody and you start thinking, okay, did you hear about that guy that passed away yesterday? But I can't remember his name. For example, you ever have those conversations years ago? I'm trying to. Who won the I don't know, NBA championship last year? And you're thinking, I can't remember. And then you leave the conversation with no answer. When is the last time you left a conversation with no answer? And then that answer pops up at 2 o'clock in the morning when you really don't care anymore. But then it comes to mind. Because today, what happens? I can Google it. I use a phrase that it's from the Bible, but just to be goofy with the kids, if they ask me something I don't know, I'll say, we don't have to be ignorant concerning these things. Let's look it up. And not only do we have Google, but now we have this wonderful invention called AI that not only can look it up for you, but can analyze it and provide feedback. It's wild. Within just a few seconds, we can have every answer. But back in the day, it wasn't like that, was it? We could walk away from a conversation, and I don't know about you, but it drives me crazy if I can't think of that name. It drives me wild if I can't remember that answer. But there was a time when that was the way it was. And then again, 3 days later, it came to mind like, oh, now I remember what that person's name was. Now I remember who won that game. Because we can be so impatient that we don't even like the idea of having to wait for an answer. So our day is built for ease, it's built for speed, and it's built for comfort. Those three is kind of like the trifecta of a good life. If I can make my life easier, more comfortable, and if things could just speed up a little bit for me, then I know that's going to be a good day. Some of you are avid, I'm going to look at you right now, you Kings Island people or Disney people. I mean, what do you do at amusement parks to increase the speed? What do? You buy a fast pass. A couple extra bucks, and you can be that envy of everybody else in the 3-hour line who marches to the front, and you get to enjoy that ride quicker and easier than everybody else. And for some people, it's no object. It is so worth avoiding that line because I don't want to wait. That line looks ridiculous, and it does, to be honest with you, and it really is. Waiting really isn't in our vocabulary, and patience, it's not a great virtue. How many of you would consider yourself naturally a patient person? Because some people it's Becky, okay, Kim. So it's just Holly. All right. So some people it's just that's your thing. So if you didn't raise your hand, I'm assuming you're the ones that patience is not you. Right? I'm what would be the opposite of patient? A short fuse, I guess. Well, okay, yes. Thank you for that, Morgan. Yes. Yes, somebody. Yeah, if you're not patient, then you're impatient. That makes total sense. I feel dumb now. We're digging really deep. Yeah. Yeah. I feel really dumb now that you just threw that one out there. But here it is. Can we agree on that premise that we're living a day that really is not built towards? And we can provide example after example after example of the frustration of waiting and the lack of patience that we display. So, did you know, though, that God is very serious about that topic? That's really a thing that he takes not lightly, that it's really a serious thing. So when you get to James chapter 5, we're going to start in verse 7 and kind of work our way down. But the theme of this section is this topic of patience. Everything I tell you this evening is going to lead with that phrase, be patient, here's why. And James is going to outline for us the importance of patience. He's going to share with us why it is that God thinks it's so important and how it is that we can develop that. Because, yeah, even if you don't naturally display patience, it's still something that God can cultivate by His grace in your life, and it really ultimately is a good thing. So when you look at verse number 7, somebody read for me, James chapter 5, just verse number 7.
Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain.
All right, now we're already tying back into Sunday morning what verse number 7 is. So I'm going to give you 5 things real quick, okay? The first one is this: be patient. Why? Because the Lord is coming. James says that directly in the verse that Tony just read, right in verse number 7. He says, be patient. So I'm not making this up. I'm not that creative. So be patient, therefore. Why? Unto the coming of the Lord. So this is going right back to what we spent a lot of time on the topic of the rapture. Really understanding that Jesus is coming back. And I think that as a result of our time in Revelation, at least you understand where we stand, or at least where I stand, and where the church stands concerning the rapture and its relationship to the tribulation. But here's the thing. Verse number 7 solidifies the fact that God is coming back, that Jesus will return. So the question is this: be patient. Why? Because Jesus is coming back. So the question is, what is it about the return of Christ that should motivate us towards patience? Okay, why? Why does the return of Christ encourage patience in our life? Make the connection for me. Okay, so we don't know. What do we call that? That's a quiz from that Sunday message. Yes, the imminency, that Jesus is coming back. We know that. We just don't know when. So in the meantime, the Bible uses phrases like be watchful, keep your eyes up, to be patient as you wait for that. What else about it? What is it about the return of Christ that should cause patience?
Kind of no matter how bad things may seem right now, you know that how the end of the Bible takes place, and you know that we're victors, and that you're just going to have to thug it out until the end.
Okay, so knowing the end of the story, it should help, right? So if you think about life in a linear fashion, as a line, so here we are, here is the return of Christ. When you think about it, from that point to this point, it may seem like in the middle are some real serious downtimes, which they are. We're not diminishing that at all. But at the end, at the return of Christ, guess what happens? I mean, the Bible says that everything that takes place beyond or before that pales in comparison to the glory that shall be revealed in eternal life. So knowing what's happening afterwards gives us a different perspective on what we're going through now. Question: what's going to happen afterwards that provokes excitement or patience in our life? What's going to take place after the return of Christ that causes us to be patient a little bit? So that's a good answer. Let's unpack that a little bit more. What about eternity makes it more, what would be the way to say it? What is it about eternity that makes us more patient about now?
No more suffering.
No more suffering. Good. That's gone. Don't have to worry about it. What else?
We'll be with Jesus and
Okay.
all of our loved ones that have gone on, and just, a lot of times when I'm listening to songs and I get really excited about the song, I'm thinking, well, we can be doing this like forever.
Sure.
It's exciting when you think about it. We always do a countdown for vacation. I don't know why we're not doing countdowns to go to heaven.
We don't know where the number starts. But yeah, so being in the presence of God, we're going to talk about that on Sunday. Commercial. Revelation 4, verse 3, all the way to Revelation 5 is this Sunday. It's going to be an amazing study. Do what? What'd you say? Did she say how long will that be?
Yes.
Oh, she's out of it.
4 minutes.
Okay. I'm teasing. I was downstairs with all those children.
Oh, so you're mad at me?
Not mad.
A little impatient? Just get it over with already. Was that this past week? Was the rapture this past week? I don't remember. It was.
I hope not, but this one.
No, not the event. Yeah. Hey, newsflash, the next 7 years is going to be pretty rough. If that was it. No, did we talk about the rapture this past week? Is that, I don't know why my, yes, it was a long one, and I somewhat apologize. Listen, I only get that one Sunday with a lot of people. I walk away from it, and my kids are always the first one, Dad, that was way too long. Don't put your hand out, right?
It was 53 minutes.
Was it 53, the message part?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, that's long, I'll give you that, but I don't get that shot with a lot of people, so I hope you hear my heart. Go ahead.
You know, your sermons are not as long as the sermons that we were used to at Norwood.
Yeah.
And I'm at Norwood Baptist. I mean,
Really?
we never got out at noon. Never.
What time would you start?
Same thing, what was it?
10:30?
Yeah. And
Okay.
we never got, it was always afternoon before we got out. You
Yeah.
asked Jerry because they had to wait for it for lunch. Well,
Okay.
yeah, so
Okay.
every time I hear that, I mean,
It was over and out.
yeah,
Was
I
it?
don't like the fact that that's pointed out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I knew Jonathan behind you, his services would go hours.
Oh, yeah, you start
like-
at 7 p.m. and you end around 11, 12 at night.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So-
But and I try to be sensitive. I mean, if I was the one in the seat, I'm good for 20, 30 minutes personally, and then my mind's gone. Jerry just had to remind me what to say in 20 minutes from now. So I'm not good at that. So I try to be sensitive to it.
You can't remember what you preached on Sunday.
Did you notice that?
See, the reason it seems long to us, you've got everything planned out.
I got it.
At a certain time.
Yeah.
And then when you go long, you know how kids are.
I totally, yes, yes. I didn't,
I always feel like, I listened to your sermon today because we were downstairs, so I listened to it. And I didn't think it was long because I was listening, I was genuinely listening. And I think when you're involved in it and it's
Sure.
something that it didn't seem long.
yeah, well, that's the goal. I'm not great at it at any stretch. How did we get off on that topic? Where did that come from? Did you start that? No, Shirley did. She said I went way too long because we were talking about the rapture. Okay. Just hear my heart. I'm not trying to be overly time unconscious, but yeah. Anyway, where are we at? Revelation chapter 21. Oh, that's what it was. What about eternity is it that gets us excited, that should help us to be patient during this life? Lacking of suffering. Oh, that's what it was. Be in the presence of Christ. This Sunday is Revelation 4, verse 3, and all the entirety of chapter 5. And no, just because it's more verses doesn't make it any longer. I'll say that. But I think it'll be an encouraging thing. Let me ask you, how many of you, either now or prior, you don't have to distinguish between the two, the thought of eternity strikes a little bit of fear in your heart? I mean, again, we are so driven by time, the concept of doing something forever, right? Your mind is just blown. And my kids are like stressing out. Is this going to be a church service for eternity? Are we really going to sing songs forever? What are we going to do up there forever? The more you unfold what the Bible does say about heaven, especially like what we'll talk about Sunday, it makes it so much more desirable than what we're going through here. And that's not just what
We have no concept of that time.
totally outside of the realm of time. Yeah.
Well, we're trying to understand the concept of eternity in our finite minds here.
Yes.
But there we're going to have a glorified body.
Correct.
And like Adam just said, it's time is going to not going to matter.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it out here is like, it is mind boggling.
It is. And I don't think we'll ever, until we're there, understand what it is. It's impossible. Yes, ma'am.
The younger people are like us. We've heard about it forever.
Yeah.
You know, if you were raised from infancy till now in church, Jesus is coming back.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about time. Well, we're into the old age time so quickly. And today is Tony's birthday, so he's much.
I expect this. I'm guessing there's a big party right after this, right?
In the kids area, they cooked pasta and all kinds of stuff. Just
I'm just saying, we get to this age quickly.
yeah.
And it's like you're 35 and then you're 75. And so it's so fast.
Yeah.
So you think about it different now because you're almost getting there.
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, the countdown's getting closer.
Yeah. Tony, how old are you?
74.
Are you really? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Or should I say that to Brenda? Because how many years of the 74 have you guys been married? I'm asking Brenda. I don't expect you to get that one,
I
Tyler.
like 53.
Like 53?
Yeah, pretty much, it may, give or take.
21 when you get married. Okay.
4 or 5, I don't know.
So if you turn your Bible, go to Revelation chapter 21 real quick. Here's the thing. So the statement is, "Be patient, the Lord is coming," and we got a little sidetracked on that one. But can I show you what is to come? I had someone Sunday morning after church, mind blown, and a little bit frustrated with me, not because of the length of the sermon, but because of the fact that I made the statement somewhere that this earth that we're living on is going to be destroyed. And they'd never heard that before. I don't remember saying that Sunday, but apparently it came out. We understand that what we are living in right now, this earth will be destroyed. As a matter of fact, the current place called heaven is not the eternal spot for a soul. Is that crazy? So what do we have to look forward to? Like, why would James use the coming of Christ as a means to invoke patience? Revelation chapter 21 gives us a glimpse of what it's going to look like, what it's going to be like. Would somebody read the first 5 verses? Revelation 21, 1 to 5.
And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat down upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful.
Now, when you look at those 5 verses, what stands out there that you look forward to leaving behind here? So he gives some pretty specific statements that this is what it's going to be like in eternity. What about eternity is something you think, I'm ready to leave this behind in exchange for what he just said?
Pain and suffering.
Pain and suffering. I mean, isn't that a huge one? Can you imagine a day where you wake up and nothing hurts? Where, I mean, I laid on my back last night and replaced my wife's caliper and I couldn't move this morning. And I don't consider myself in the ballpark of a lot of people, but that concrete floor, it played a toll. I'm sore today, like I hurt. Can you imagine a day where you don't have to worry about a body that's failing anymore? What else?
No more death.
No more death. So that imminency of our mortality, not a thing. We don't have to worry about that anymore. What else?
No more crying.
No more crying. Sorrow will be gone. Every tear will be wiped away from our eyes.
No more getting that phone call in the middle of the night.
Yeah, you don't have to dread that. You don't have to turn your phone on silent in the night, dreading what could be a potentially life-changing call. Anything else? What do you look forward to leaving behind? So look back at the text. So there is going to be a new heaven. There is going to be a new earth. The first ones where we're at now, the first heaven, boom, gone. And there was no more sea. We're going to talk about the sea on Sunday, so I don't want to say any more about that. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down. I heard a great voice saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God. Verse 4, God will wipe away all of our tears. And then here becomes the list that John is going to use to help us get an understanding of what it's going to be like. No more tears, no more death, no more sorrow, no more crying, no more pain. I mean, doesn't those things sound pretty good? That sounds kind of attractive for sure. And then he says, for the former things are passed away. All of that is stuff that is delegated to this life, but will not be to the future life that we'll enjoy. He sits on a throne in verse 5. He said, Behold, I make all things what? Meaning, why would he? What kind of statement is that for God to make? Behold, I make all things new. What does that mean? It is a clean slate. Anything about this is, I think this is going to be part of the amazing aspect of heaven, is anything that we understand in this life is totally going to be changed in the next. There's going to be similarities, but literally everything that we understand is going to be changed. All the way down to the very place that God allowed us to reside for 70, 80, 90 years. It's all going to be new. It's all going to be a brand new experience. And he says, write these things because they're true and they're faithful. So whatever it is that is attractive to you about eternity, set your eyes on that. Because in this life, it's not going to be a walk in the park. In this life, trials and suffering, the trying of our patience is going to be present. So we're thinking eternally. My focus is going to be on, okay, my life today was terrible, it was rough, this happened, that happened, this happened, but I know what's about to happen down the road. I know Jesus, he still loves me. I know that he's coming for me. I know these things to be true. I know that what I'm experiencing in this life is but a season, but there is coming an eternity where I don't have to worry about this junk anymore. So in the meantime, he says what? Be patient. Just wait. Just wait a little longer. All right, now you get to verse 7 and 8 of our text in James chapter 5. So be patient, the Lord is coming, and when he comes back for us, it's going to be amazing. Let's start again in verse 7, and then let's include verse number 8. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman, he waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rains. Be ye also patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. So, in verse 7, it was be patient, the Lord is coming. Now you include verse number 8. Here's the statement, be patient. God is accomplishing something in you. All right, so this makes it a little bit more personal. It's not just about, oh, I'm going to experience all this greatness of heaven, which we will, but now we understand immediately that what God allows to be introduced into my life is not by accident. It's not by sheer chance that trial is allowed. It is permitted by an almighty God who in his infinite desire for us is that benefit might be received. Does that make sense? God is doing something in the trials that he allows. And so when you look at the illustration in verse number 7, the Bible says, behold the husbandman. What's a husbandman? It's a worker, it's a farmer specifically. So behold the farmer. What is a farmer's singular job? His goal is to do what? Plant and then reap the harvest, right? But anybody that has been around this, we see this picture several times in the New Testament specifically. We understand that the farmer, it's not easy work. Pre-farming equipment days, it was labor. It was long days. It was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that were invested in the creation, not the creation, but the planting of the seeds and the desire to reap the harvest. But the crazy part about that is what? If I plant a seed today, guess what's not popping up tomorrow? As much as we like it, I mean, you can go and you can water it, you can miracle grow the fire out of the thing, you can yell at it, you can play nice music to it if you want. But if you plant a seed, Cindy, you know this, you do a lot with planting. You plant a seed today, it's going to take a minute or several. It's going to take some time. The husbandman picture is that reminder of there is fruit. God is doing something in our lives, but to see the fruit of what God is doing as he allows this time of trial, it's going to demand patience. But we cling to the truth. What did he say in Revelation 21? Write these things because why? They're faithful and they're true. And so as we start thinking about why does God allow us to go through all of these trials and these seasons of toughness? Well, it's because he's doing something. There is fruit that is going to be produced. There is something that God is trying to work in us and through us during that time, and the fruit is always worthwhile. Now, James has already told us that sometimes to develop patience in us, he allows suffering. Remember the infamous verses in James chapter 1, verse 2, 3, and 4? We already talked about it once, but let me remind you, it says this. My brethren, not only approach it with patience, what does he say in verse number 2? Count it all what? Why? Why? Ain't no one in this room seeking out opportunities to suffer. There's none of us that are putting it literally on our Google calendars that says tomorrow and Thursday I'm going to invest effort into tracking down something that's going to make me miserable. Nobody's doing that. But James reminds us in verse number 2, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into temptations of many kinds, diverse temptations. Why? Knowing this, that the trying of your faith is going to produce the fruit. Guess what it is? There's that stinking word again. that by allowing us to navigate tough times and endure trials and endure suffering, there is a fruit of patience that God is trying to produce in us. So, a moment ago, when I asked you, how many of you think that you naturally are a patient soul? There was like 3 of you that said, yeah, I think patience is my strong suit. And the majority of us said, not a chance. Listen to me. You are the target audience of James chapter 1 and James chapter 5. And God is going to allow some of these more difficult situations to enter into our lives because His goal is He sees the rough edges of our lives and He realizes that patience is part of that rough edge and He wants to smooth it out a little bit. But I don't know about you, if you've been working on your soapbox cars, which I hope that you have, but as you cut them out, you probably don't just hit it with a bandsaw. What do you do after that? You're going to sand it down. Smooth those edges. Get rid of the roughness, the rigidity of that wood so that it hopefully goes down the track faster. God sees our rough edges and He allows trials to come into our life to sand those rough edges. What does the rest of that verse say? He's working patience, but it doesn't stop there. Verse 4, but let patience have her perfect work. Why? That you might be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. So deductively, when you look at verse number 4, if you have patience, you're not going to lack. There's nothing else that you're going to want. That's how God views patience. It's important. Be patient. The Lord is coming, verse 7. Be patient. God is accomplishing something in you. He's going to establish your heart to get through it. And again, here's the second reminder, verse number 8. And in case you forgot, from verse 7, the Lord's coming. It's drawing near. It's nearer today than it was Sunday when we spent way too long, according to some, talking about it. It's coming. He's coming. All right, look at verse 9. Be patient. The Lord is coming. Be patient. God is working through the situations as trying as they might be. Somebody read verse number 9.
Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door.
This is a really interesting thing. Be patient, the Lord is coming. Be patient, God's doing something in the trials. But now, this verse doesn't seem well connected to the previous 2. Because now what is he talking about? This is a relational verse. This is what we called in class, I had to take a semester on interpersonal relationships. That's what we are now discussing. And what is God's instruction there?
Don't complain.
Don't complain. About what?
Everything.
About everything, specifically what?
Anything.
Don't complain about anything, but let's one another. Let's zoom that in a little bit. Because obviously complaining, not good. But in this context, the answer was what? In verse number 9, grudge not one against another. Stop complaining about each other. Now, is it true, don't you dare say Sunday morning was an example, is it true that you have ever found yourself having your patience tested by somebody else? If you've been married for longer than 24 hours, you know the answer to that is 100% yes. They're going to push your buttons. Premarital counseling there. He's going to get on your nerves. She's going to get on your nerves. There. We already... We'll talk about that next week. It's going to happen. You put 2 people in close proximity, they're going to get on each other's nerves. I don't know if I want to... Okay, go ahead.
No, I read something, and it was within the last week, that God doesn't care if we grumble and complain, if we grumble and complain to Him.
Okay.
He doesn't want us grumbling and complaining to other people.
Certainly wouldn't be beneficial to each
He doesn't care if we
other.
complain to Him, because if we were smart, we'll listen, but
Okay.
I don't know who said that, but in reading that, I never thought of it that way.
Sure, that's interesting.
That's an example of Moses when they complained against him with what he said.
Well, yeah. Moses is talk about a guy with patience. Moses was always tried by those folks. Let me ask you this: Why should we be patient with each other? Why?
So we don't get angry.
Okay, because if we don't deal with the issue, anger, bitterness, some other things could raise up from it. Good answer.
Ultimately, it's because God is patient with us.
Okay, so when you think about it in that perspective, if God's patient with me, then I think that I could be patient with somebody else. What else? Why do you think God puts a major premium on being patient with each other?
We all have our issues.
Some more than others, but we all definitely have our own issues. Good answer. Good.
I think at the end, we are always blessed. If we can get through it and we are a little patient,
Yeah.
there's always a blessing.
Sure. Okay, so thinking a little bit farther out for the blessings.
It's a poor testimony.
Okay, for sure. For sure. That if somebody sees infighting, especially within the body of Christ, what does that communicate? You know, when Jesus calls his own to love one another, and then the world sees inside of the church and realizes they don't love anybody, it's a poor testimony for the body of Christ. Here's the fact. You're going to lose your patience with somebody. You might have done it today. I have no idea, but it's going to happen. The thing is, though, we know how we should think about one another. We know what the Bible principle is. I should be patient with you. You should be patient with me, and we all just skip out of church singing, Kumbaya or something like that. That's what the Bible calls us to. But as we move towards the day that we just discussed, as we get closer to the rapture, God is working on every one of us. So point number 2 is true about everybody, okay? The difference is kind of the process of our relationship with the Lord is different. Somebody in this room may have been saved for 50 years. Some people may have only been saved for 5. So your journey is a little bit different with the Lord than somebody else's. But at the bottom line, God is working on every one of us, every single one of us. Now, here's the thing about that. He's working on us because he knows what our issues are. Right now, if I was to ask you, give me your issues or tell me your spouse's issues, you could rattle them off pretty fast. God knows every one of them, even the ones that you wouldn't say out loud to answer that question. He knows every last detail about your life. But do you realize that when Jesus purchased us through the shed blood on the cross, do you realize that God knew what he was buying? You ever buy something and you get into it and realize that's not what I thought it was? This is the best example I can think of. You ever rent a movie and think that's not what I thought that was going to be? Or you buy a product, that's not what I expected. I thought it was going to do this, it did that. And you're surprised. God is not surprised when he sees us behave the way that we did. He knew exactly what he was buying with his blood. Isn't that crazy? I never thought about it that way until today. He understood what it was and who it was he was purchasing with his own blood. He knew us by name, and he knows every last detail about us. He also knows that when he bought us, that he also had enough grace for us, and that grace would never run out. God never gets impatient with us. He is long-suffering toward us. He is patient and kind and good to us, even when some of the things we either struggle or we fail are like the most elementary things. Some of those basic things that we could do. I need to be praying more, and I fail God in that area. I don't spend enough time with him, and God knows that. He doesn't look at Jerry and think, you think you're telling me something here, buddy? Yeah, you didn't pray today. You think that shocked me? God, that doesn't get him by surprise at all. Now think about this. It's a really cool picture here in verse number 9. In a lifetime of stumbling, God never throws in the towel. When you think about it. He never gets angry. He never wants to complain about us. And while he sees it all, look at the imagery in verse number 9. Grudge not one against another. Why? Lest you be condemned. And here's the image. Behold, the judge standeth before the door. What does that mean? What judge and what door? What are we talking about? We haven't talked about a door or a judge anywhere in this whole chapter, and now he just throw this one out there. So think about it this way. If you think about the doorway and think about the imagery, okay, the doorway of your life, and you have somebody that's standing in that doorway, and they are observing your life, and they are judging motives, words, actions, all the above. They are judging everything that you do. Have you ever stood in the doorway of your child just to see what they're going to do? Thought they were in bed. Lights were off, TVs were off, games were off, phones were off, and yet you stand in the doorway just to see, are they going to be dumb? I mean, we've got 2 boys that share a room. Are they going to punch each other this time? Are they going to go right to bed? Are they going to... And what are we doing? We're standing in the doorway, and I, as a judge, am waiting to see what happens, and if it's something that's going to prolong the bedtime routine and make them grumpy in the morning because they did without sleep, the judge is going to execute some type of judgment. Who is the judge that stands in the doorway of your life? Hold on. Who is it? Okay, God is the only rightful judge. Who else, though, can stand in that doorway? I mean, have you ever noticed that, man, there's that one person, they want to stand in the doorway. Sometimes it is our spouse. She's always in the doorway. And guess what? She's quick to tell me when I do something wrong or quick to reveal it. But when you think about it, there's only one rightful judge that stands in the doorway and judges our behavior, thoughts, words, etc. And it's not each other. It's the Almighty God himself. So when he looks into our lives, when he is standing in the doorway as our judge, we have to remember that every one of us in this room, we're all equals before a holy God. I have no right to stand in the doorway of Jerry and say, Jerry, really dropped the ball on that one. Could have done that better. Or hey, Cindy, I heard what you said that time. You should have, who am I to stand in the doorway when I'm just as equally a sinner as anybody in the room? So when you think about this, that the phrase is, and again, this is a great phrase, the ground is level at the foot of the cross. Every single individual has equal need of salvation and forgiveness of sins as everybody else. So why in the world do we take it upon ourselves to judge each other when I'm no better than you and you're no better than I? And the imagery then is in verse number 9, behold, the judge, and I would imagine that might even need to be capitalized just to give some specifics. The judge standeth before the door is God himself, observing, watching, standing, and realizing that even if he sees us stumble, even if he sees us fail, he still loves us. And he still has patience with us. And he doesn't look at James and say, you know what, that's this, the whole 70 times 7 thing, where Jesus talked about that? Well, you're at 491. I'm done with you now. He doesn't do that. His patience doesn't allow him to do that. Now, if we think it's our job to stand at the doorway of other people's lives and judge and condemn, then I think that means we have forgotten how much mercy has been extended to us individually. I mean, if I could look at Don and constantly condemn his behavior without ever looking in the mirror, I have missed the beauty of what mercy is all about.
Plus Matthew says, focus more on thine own eye first.
Sure. Yeah, so
Before you go to start judging
that whole process, absolutely. This whole conversation really boils down to arrogance, doesn't it? It really boils down to a lack of humility, thinking that we're awesome and everyone else is less than. James's argument is this: the real judge is standing in the door. He's watching you more than you're watching others. How does our reaction to others compare to God's reaction to us? If I'm quick to jump down somebody else's throat, if I'm quick to judge, and I lack patience with somebody else, am I representing the Christ who is constantly patient with me? It's a tough one, though, isn't it? All right, you ready? Be patient. The Lord's coming. Be patient. In these trials, God's accomplishing something. Be patient with each other. Here's the fourth one. It's in verse 10 and 11. Be patient because God's promises are true. Look at verse 10. James chapter 5, verse 10. Take my brethren, the prophets, who have spoken in the name of the Lord for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience. So they've done it both. Behold, we count them very happy which endure. You have heard of the patience of Job and have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. So think about this. There are parts of the Bible that we must recognize make life a little bit more difficult. That God is calling us to obedience and submission to the authority of God's word, and there are parts of the Bible that make that a little bit more challenging. There are commands that are given. There are passages that if we had any ability to, we might like to say, if I could just ignore that section, let's just kind of shove that one off and skip it as if it doesn't even appear. When you get to verse 10 and 11, there is one book of the Bible that's referenced that's probably one of the books we'd like to skip. Which one is it? It's the book of Job. Right? Why would we want to study a book that the central theme of it is man's suffering? Why would we want to study, I don't remember how many I think it was 42 chapters in Job, roughly. Why would we want to go that long into a dissertation on suffering? Can we just get to the love and the acceptance and all that good stuff? I don't want to realize that suffering might be part of life. So when you think about this whole deal with Job, you can, if you want to turn there, go back there real quickly. I think we have a moment. Job chapter 1. Let's see. Why does he mention Job? Of all of the prophets, of all of the Old Testament characters, why Job? It's a great question. All right. If you were to summarize the book of Job in one word, providing a theme, what would you provide? What word would you use to summarize the entire book of Job? One word. One word summary of Job. What is it? Suffering. Excellent example. Give me another one. One word summary of the book of Job. Suffering? Anybody top that one? That's a good answer.
Faithfulness?
Faithfulness. Good. It's a good one. Do you want to be a positive? Say it again.
I say run away.
Run away. Yeah. Yeah. Job's wife had something to say about that for sure. Do you realize that, remember, James is trying to offer hope. That's kind of weird. How do you take the life of Job and find encouragement? I would say that that's the point of the book of Job. There is encouragement that's to be found, but it takes you a minute to get there. Look at Job chapter 1, and let's establish the scene. Verse number 6. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. Now, I don't know what Shirley's study Bible has to say about that. I'd be curious to know. Seriously, that's an interesting verse. I don't think that I could draw any authoritative conclusions to that verse, except that it seems, well, I mean, it doesn't even seem, it's apparent that even though Satan was booted out of heaven, he still has access to God. All right, and there's still judgment that's being taking place. So, in all of this, verse number 7 says this: "And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou?" Now, anytime God asks a question, it should immediately get our attention. Why?
He already knows the answer.
He already knows the answer.
He's not asking because he doesn't know.
Right. He doesn't need your answer. So listen, anytime God asks a question, you should be drawn to that question. There's a reason why he's asking, because he doesn't need the answer. He already knows what it is. But he's asking for our benefit, not his. So, looking at Satan, he says, "Whence comest thou?" Now, here's the thing. Does he know the answer to that? Yeah, he does. All right. Then Satan answered the Lord, "From going to and fro in the earth and from walking up and down in it." Again, God's not blown away by that answer, but he says in verse number 8, he says unto Satan, "Hast thou considered my servant Job?" Now, hang on. That's wild. All right? Now, I don't know if this is like, back in the day when we studied, when I was getting ready for like a book report or something, I never read the book. I read something called the Cliff's Notes. You remember those things? The beauty of a Cliff's Notes. I could get the whole concept of a book, read it in 10 pages instead of 150 or whatever it was. I don't know if that's what's happening here, but that is a wild leap from verse 7 to verse 8. Where are you coming from, Satan? Well, I've been walking to and fro in the earth, and I've been. Peter reminds us that he's seeking whom he may devour. I'm walking up and down it, and God says, "Have you thought about Job at all?" Make it make sense. Like, why? Why would he? Again, this is a question that he's asking, so it's very pointed. There's a reason why Job's name is interjected into this conversation, but to me it seems a little random. God, what are you doing? So keep reading. "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth?" Maybe that's the connection. You just said you've been roaming around all over the face of the earth. Have you watched Job at all? God's opinion of Job: he is a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. So that's his reputation. That's God's thoughts about him. So here's what Satan says. He answers and said, "Doth Job fear God for naught? Have you not made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land." What's he saying? Job loves you because of what you've done for him. Remember the statement? He's almost accusing Job of wanting God, not wanting God, but wanting God's stuff. Remove his stuff, he's not going to like you so much anymore. So there's a direct accusation, because Satan is called the accuser of the brethren. Here he is in full force. All right, God, could you imagine the boldness of looking at God and saying, he only loves you because of what you give him? That's a crazy statement, but Satan hasn't proven himself to be very logical at all. So keep reading. Verse 11, "But put forth thine hand now, touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face." So challenge issued from Satan to God, as if he's anybody to tell God what to do. But he's trying to prove the point that if you remove his blessings, then Job will curse him to the face. So verse number 12, and the Lord said unto Satan, behold, all that he hath is in his power, only upon himself, but not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. So what are the guidelines that were given to Satan? You can do whatever you want, but you can't touch Job. Hands off. Isn't it interesting that Satan can only do what God allowed him to do within the parameters that God established? This wasn't God relinquishing any out of control Satan onto Job. He tells him, you can do this, but you're not going to do this. All right, so what happens? So this kind of talk occurs multiple times. Several accusations that are made. The accuser, Satan, comes in every time he has to ask permission to do something. And what ends up happening? What all does Job end up losing in all of this? He loses everything. Except what? Now this is, except the wife. Except the wife. What ends up happening then? Job hits rock bottom. Job loses everything. And his wife comes, and what was her infamous statement? Curse God and die, Job. Awesome. You married up. You married up, Job. Good call. She's a true blessing. Here comes the encouragement. Because you look at this and think, okay, where is the encouragement in all this? Back in James, this is being used to encourage patience in the believers. And here we're watching this guy literally lose everything. And he doesn't lose his wife, but he might as well have, because she's not doing anything encouraging for the guy. Where does the encouragement of Job, when does it surface? When do we see it?
Exactly. Because he allows God to play out. He's patient and allows God to play out his hand. Okay. And in the end is the reward.
So in the end, we have to get to the end of the book of Job to see the goodness of God. As David says, I would have fainted, Isaiah would have said, I would have fainted lest I had seen the goodness of God in the land of the living. Job had to get to the end of the book before he ever realized that there's some blessings that are coming my way. That God is still faithful even in the midst of all of this loss. Now, when Job's name is mentioned in James chapter 5, the people who are hearing this book, this letter being written, they know Job. So when James says, in whatever verse that was now, I've already gotten away from it, verse number 11, you have heard the patience of Job. Every one of them in the room said, yep, I know exactly who you're talking about. This is not new news to them. They've heard about Job. That's Old Testament. And they know what happens in the end of the book. In the last 5 chapters of the book of Job, God meets Job. God restores Job. God restores all of his belongings over and over and over again. And we see the compassion and the loving God that ministers to Job. The blessings are received because of Job's faithfulness and endurance of this trial that God permits to take place. Now, those reading the book of Job can look back on years and recognize God's faithfulness as well. We can do the same. And here's the crazy part. Why Job? Why would God mention Job? And the only thing that I can think of is this, that we are not here to diminish trials that anyone has experienced. I mean, my goodness. Some of the things that our church family has gone through, is going through, cannot be diminished. It stinks, it's hurtful, it's grievous, it's torturous at times to see the loss that people are enduring. But here's the thing. Even though we might have a rough go at it, and God allows all kinds of mess into our lives, I'm pretty sure none of us have lost 7 kids, ended up homeless, and dying of a disease. I don't think anybody can top that. Again, not trying to diminish what God allows into our lives, but trying to put it in perspective. Why is Job the poster child for patience? Because that's what he went through. He is a picture of what God's mercy and compassion looks like. I mean, I wish we had time to talk about others. We could talk about Joseph and some of the other people and what they went through, but we don't. But I want to remind you this evening that when we say we can be patient because God's promises are true, God has promised never to betray us. God will never fail us. His promises will always be true, especially when we're experiencing the awfulness of living in a broken world. That's why we say, man, we got to get some promises of God in this little thing here between our ears, so that when we are in one of those seasons, we can reproduce those promises. We can have them memorized and cling to them, because we know that God is always going to be true to them. All right, last one. Guess where he circles back to now? We said this one already in number 3. Be patient with each other. Look at the last verse now. Verse number 12. But above all things, my brethren, swear not, neither by heaven, neither by earth, neither by any other oath, but let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, nay be nay, unless you fall into condemnation. You know what we're back to again? The last thing that God calls us to be patient, it's another principle concerning relationships with each other. He says, don't add God's name onto your oath as a means of, I don't know, somehow adding weight to it. Yeah, we hear statements like, well, I swear to God, as if I'm swearing isn't enough. If I add, I swear to God, that somehow makes whatever I'm about to say that much more important. God says, don't do that. There's a phrase now, I don't know where it came from, but just on God. Are you telling the truth? On God, I'm telling the truth. That's what he's talking directly against. Here's what James is encouraging. Nothing is more frustrating. This gets back to the interpersonal nature. He says, let your yeas be yeas and your nays be nays. Why? Because in the topic of patience, what is one of the most challenging things someone can do to you that really tests your patience with them, especially in verse 12?
If they say they're going to do something and they don't.
So, will you do this? Yes, and then it doesn't happen. Have you ever been in that boat? You ever been frustrated with somebody that said, yeah, I can do that. I can cover that. I can do that. I'll be there for that. And we don't know the motives. I had no idea why that happened. But can we agree? That's frustrating. I was trusting you. I was counting on you, and you let me down. I've done that countless times, I'm sure, to people. I'd say that I'll do something, and I might have the best motives, and then realize, oh no, I forgot. I was supposed to be there. I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to call them, go see them, and it totally slipped my mind. But how frustrating is it when you're counting on somebody and they let you down? What about the flip side? How does let your no be no? How does that work into the whole conversation? Give me an example or just an explanation. The yay seems to make sense. The no's a little bit different. Let your no's be no's. Not no's, just nays. Nay. We'll go with nay.
He's talking about decision making.
Okay.
So if he's talking about that means you know. He says you better think of what you say before
Okay.
you say it.
Okay. Sure. Good. What else?
It just means, I think he just means don't be saying an oath or anything like that, or I swear or something.
Okay.
Just say yes, means yes, and no means no, and then all that promise to do stuff, or,
Sure.
on my mother, I swear.
Yeah, on the Bible, yeah, all of those phrases. Yeah.
He's just saying, I think he's just saying, do away with all that, just say yes for yes and no for no.
Just keep it clear. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Could it be that something that you are convicted about or you believe in, that the Bible has said, and you just said, we are not going to do this, and then you have peer pressure, well, this isn't going to bother you, or this shouldn't affect you.
Yeah.
You should still be able to say no.
Sure. I'm going to be honest. The answers that were given, I think, are very, very valid. I don't know the real answer to it. I was hoping you would give some really enlightening answer to this, because I think what you shared is exactly right. The only thing that I could think of that would make sense interpersonally is, have you ever asked somebody to do something and they said no, and this is the reason? I can't because we're sick or whatever it is, and then you realize that same sick person was out at a restaurant, or has that ever happened to you? I thought they said they were sick. I thought they said they were out of town. And then you realize their no really wasn't a no. Their no was just a I don't want to. Does that make sense? If I had $1 for every time that happened, it'd be pretty amazing. It's an excuse, but it's the idea, well, I don't really want to do it, but I don't want to hurt you, so I don't want to say no. And so I'm just going to kind of say no, but then I'm going to make up an excuse, but it's not really true. It's an interpersonal disaster is what that works out to be. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think that you should just say no.
Sure.
You don't have to have a reason. And if they don't like it, too bad.
I would rather someone do that with me. I mean, I prefer if someone doesn't want to do something, I say, just say no, I don't care.
Sure, absolutely.
I've heard that, the statement go, no is a complete sentence. You know, if you don't want to do something, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't
Sure.
get peer pressured into it,
Yeah.
just, no. I don't
Just
know.
no.
I don't have to give up.
But there are, hold on, I gotta tread lightly. There are some people that no is not in their vocabulary. That they, I don't wanna offend. Does that make sense? Can I stop there? Can that be my? There are some people that just can't say no, because they want everybody to be happy. They want to be a people pleaser, and I can't say no. And to your point, Morgan, some people need to say no. It's okay to say no. The surety of saying no and it not really being a no, the only thing I could think of to apply that in our year would be that person that I'm going to say no, but I really could have said yes, and instead of saying yes, I went and did something else. And that's tough. That tries your patience for that person when you look at it and say, you told me no, but then you went and... I hope that makes sense.
I thought you were going in a totally different direction of saying no and then turning around and going ahead and doing it. So your no is not a...
Sure.
Then you can't trust...
Yeah.
Either way, you can't trust a person.
When there's inconsistencies of the yeses and nos, it produces a lack of trust. Where there's a lack of trust, there's going to be a lack of patience. And I think that's where James is getting with all of this. So above all else, above all things, which is interesting because we think about what we've discussed, and believe it or not, I'm done. When you think about everything that we have discussed, the Lord is coming, that seems like a pretty important argument on the whole patience scale. Behold, be patient because God's doing something. Be patient because out of all of these things, there is an order that's established in verse number 12. But above all things, above even the return of Christ, how important do you think that God holds this if he says, above all things, everything that we've discussed so far, don't swear neither by heaven nor by earth, neither by any other oath, let your yea be yea and your no be no, lest you fall into condemnation. You are condemning yourself as being someone who is untrustworthy when you're inconsistent in your answers. So two out of the 5 have to deal with interpersonal relationships. Why do you think that is? 40%. Just give me an answer.
God tries the hearts.
Okay.
So if you look at your heart, God sees what's going on. I mean, matter of fact, it says that God knows your thoughts long before you can say it.
Sure.
So that you align your yeses and you notice at the point of that, you're condemning yourself before God.
Sure. Good.
So we spend most of our time doing
Doing what?
interpersonal relationship.
Because and maybe I phrased it in a poor way, but I mean, why is 40% of the encouragement of patience interpersonal? Because if there's going to be somebody that's going to try your patience in this life, guess who it's going to be? It's going to be somebody else. It's probably not going to be God. We might get impatient with God. He's not going to get impatient with us. That's a one-way street. But if we have an issue with patience, most likely it's going to be interpersonal. Let me address this twice, God says then, because we need to deal with this. For the reasons that you already outlined. You can't love one another, as Jesus has taught us, if you're doing so in impatience. Those two things, that's oil and water, they don't mix. And so the patience thing is, okay, in the big picture, God allows trials and suffering to be introduced into our lives so that he can work in us this concept of patience. Is it fun? No. Ain't nobody looking forward to it. Is it worthwhile? Is it fruit producing? It is. And so he's so important that he mentions it twice in the book of James. Thoughts? Yes, ma'am.
So if we're not patient because with someone, it's basically, we have to deal with it. Like, you're always wanting to change somebody. I can change them, I can do this. Well,
Sure.
I can't do that. I have to change my way of thinking.
Yes.
So to be patient, it's all back on me.
It is. It is.
I have to change my thought process and change my heart.
Yeah.
So it's all me.
Especially towards other people. Yeah. And that's hard. I mean, again, we don't have to I don't have to ask you to say, but there's people that push your buttons like crazy. They are. But that doesn't give us permission to be any less patient with them just because they drive us wild, just because they get on our nerves that bad. But that might be the suffering that God's introducing to teach you patience, is that person. And thank God for them. Bless their hearts. Thank you so much for joining us today. I trust our time together has been encouraging to you and your walk with the Lord. If you have any questions about the ministry of Ashland, would like to financially support the ministries here, or would just like to get into contact with us, please click on the Linktree link below. More importantly, if you have any questions concerning your eternity, we would love to connect with you, hear those questions, and answer them biblically. Again, we pray that our time together has been encouraging to you. And if it has, would you do one more thing for us? Would you be sure to click the like button, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, and share this content across all your platforms so that our ministries can reach a broader audience. Know this, though, that we love you and we appreciate you being with us so much, and we hope to see you again real soon.